Here we are, ready to go over all this stuff again. I am just going to start us off with content area 2 because there's really no need to go back to content area 1. I really don't think because of there's so much conjecture and just so many unknowns and the small number of works in prehistory. I just do not think that that is going to be on the exam. Again, I really think that, and I'll reiterate this again, but I really think that your long FRQ is going to come from 2, 3, or 4, content areas 2, 3, or 4, and I think your short FRQ will come from 5 or 6. Now, I have no inside information, just using my deduction skills there. All right, so I'm going to try to make these review videos about 20 minutes long-ish and share them with you guys so that you can use these to help you prepare. They are not obviously required, but I think they could help, especially just to, remember some of these things that we've talked about, and it's been a long time. And so we're not going to talk about them nearly in as much depth as we did before. We're just going to kind of go through them and see what y'all remember. So content area 2 is going to be the ancient Near East, ancient Mediterranean. So it's going to, and Egypt really are the things. So content area 2 is going to take us from ancient Near East. So we're thinking like Sumeria, Babylonian, Assyrian, Persian, right? It's going to cover Egypt. It's going to cover the Etruscans, Greece, and Rome, right? So content area 2 is going to cover those things, okay? The ancient Near East, right? The Egyptians, the Etruscans, the Greeks, and the Romans from content area 2, right? All right. Oh, just what we were talking about here. So you guys should have notes about these things. Just remember the test is open notes. So the main things we talked about with content area 2 as we were getting started: power and authority, religion is very, very important. We talked about some creation narratives, mostly within the Egyptian culture. Permanence. Remember, anytime we're talking about Egypt, I want you guys thinking about something permanent, something to last forever. So any of the Egyptian works, if you get any of those on the AP exam, you're going to go, I remember Beller said permanence, okay? And you're going to work that in somewhere, okay? The common figures we tended to see in the ancient Near East and ancient Mediterranean, humans interacting with gods. Now, if it's Greek, we might see the humans and the gods the same size. If it's ancient Near East, we're more likely to see hierarchical scale coming into play. And we'll talk about that. You guys have all of these slides shared with you from way back at the beginning of the year. So look in Google Classroom if you're confused. And if you need anything, just let me know. All right, so this is the area of ancient Near East, and the acronym that's used for it is SANBAN. And I don't know if that helps you remember it or not, but SANBAN. So there's the side over here. And basically, we're looking at what was called the Fertile Crescent, right, between the Tigris and Euphrates. Don't need that. So this was our first piece out of prehistory, right? So prehistory, remember, we're not going to go over. So we're starting with piece 12. So for the AP exam, you're really going to be looking at piece number 12, the White Temple and Ziggurat, to piece number 180, okay? 12 to 180. Those are going to really be your parameters for the exam. So sacred spaces are something we look at in every single culture. This one's no different. If you guys remember, we talked about how in a lot of sacred spaces there is a divider, some sort of division, some sort of it could be physical, it could be just a contextual understanding that certain people are allowed in certain areas of the sacred space. So for example, you probably don't just walk into a church or walk into a temple and go up and stand where the religious leader stands. Okay, there's these kind of knowns about where different people are to be, right? What role they have. And so same thing is true with the White Temple and Ziggurat. We talked about how offerings would be brought here, which is very typical for sacred spaces. Remember that College Board could give you guys a reconstruction like that. They could give you a floor plan. They could give you this type picture. So anything that they provide to us as an image is something that could show up on the exam. Oh, this is something to point out. We talked a lot about axis mundi and how sacred spaces are a connection point between heaven and earth. And so that's another thing, if you had a sacred space on the AP exam, that you could definitely reference. Axis mundi, Latin, for a connection point between heaven and earth. Hierarchical scale, just as a reminder, if you're writing definitely about an ancient piece and this is prevalent, that would be a great form or content thing to bring in. Remember, hierarchical scale says that the size of the person is going to be dictated by that person's importance or assumed importance. So a king is going to be much bigger than the subjects. The Virgin Mary, right here on the right, is going to be much bigger than the apostles and disciples around her. So there's this sense of emphasis on size. These little creatures, the statuettes of votive figures or the Ashnana figures or Tel Ashmar figures. But these little things, remember, were stand-ins for worship. These have that idea of being made to last, right? So you can always talk about, if you're looking at a figure in art, you can talk about being a closed form or an open form. So these are more closed form because they're, their hands are wedded to their body. You could talk about stylized. Remember, these were stand-ins for the god, to trick the gods, right? So they had the big eyes, so they looked like they were always awake, always worshiping. Standard of Ur from the royal tombs. This is a mosaic. It was probably not a standard. Remember, this is likely it was some sort of sound box. Two sides, we talked about registers with this work. Remember, this work is not a narrative. A narrative is going to mean that there's some sort of progression to the story. All right, Hammurabi's Code. This is a work that I know you guys talk about in history as well. And so we have a hierarchical scale being used here. You have, sorry about that. You have a interaction between a god and a human as well. Remember that this is going to keep the codes and these will be posted around town to remind of the code. So this is Babylonian cuneiform. They're power symbols. They are to keep law and order in society. We talked about therianthropes, and therianthropes are going to be these combinations between humans and animals. And so usually if you have a therianthrope, it's indicating that there's some sort of supernatural power. When we looked at with the let's see, who was it, in the Indigenous Americas in Mexico, we looked at the Mayan Yaxchilean kind of serpent that came out of that lentil, the Yaxchilean lentil, and it had Lady Zook, and the snake was kind of coming out. She was having a vision, she was bleeding. And so you have this kind of animal human transformation happening. Or I'm thinking about Chauvin at the inside Chauvin de Wantaire and those old temples, right? Remember the Chauvin, which is Peruvian, they had the Lanzon, and the Lanzon was that vertical sculpture. It was way deep in those galleries, remember, and you had to like they gave you drugs when you went there, and you heard the sounds of the banging. It seemed like the mountains were alive right there in the Andes. And that character in the middle was a jaguar human combo. So whether we're talking, I mean, all these different civilizations, all these different contexts, still using the idea of therianthrope as a sacred or supernatural form. So keep that in mind. Oh, speaking of therianthrope, yep, there we go, the Lamassu. Remember that these were kind of guardian figures. They stood at the gates, multiple sets of them. I think there were 13 sets at the gates at the Citadel of Sargon. So there's an in situ picture. These are the ones that had the 4 legs, one direction, and 2 legs from the front, but then 5 from the side, and we talked about that. And College Board also gives us a picture of the Citadel of Sargon. So again, these are fortified walled cities for protection. So that tells us these are warring cultures. So Sanban, all of the ancient Near East, these are warring cultures. Right, and that takes us to Persepolis. Persepolis was our Persian piece here right at the end. With Persepolis, we talked about Alexander the Great, remember coming in and destroying Persepolis. It had been set up as a summer palace for Darius and Xerxes. Apadana is referring to this audience hall, the main part here, this giant bull capitals on the top of these columns. So again, reinforcing the idea of power and authority, reinforcing that idea of decorative objects. This Persepolis was full of Persian rugs and giant wood doors and heavy drapery and all these things that were elaborate for the king. It has the Qanat, which is the water system that still runs here. And there's one of the capitals at the Louvre in Paris. One of the things that was really important about the Persians that we talked about was the fact that they embraced other cultures when they conquered them. And so we see here more of a multicultural approach. You end up with representations of Ethiopians, of people from far West Asia, bringing things here to honor the Persian kings. And so it's this very like cross-cultural acceptance. Remember, the Persians were like, we're still in charge, but we're going to allow these other groups to kind of assimilate. They kept some of their own things and cultures, but they still brought goods here. So the Persians are a powerhouse until Alexander the Great. So the Assyrian reliefs, we talked about those at the Citadel of Sargon, versus the Persian reliefs show more of this, less violent, more confidence, I would say. All right, so that was all of Sanban. I know I said 20 minutes, but that seems like a good stopping spot. So let's go ahead and stop there. And that will be all of your pieces for the ancient Near East.